Hey, everybody. Welcome to One Email, Two Takes. For those that are joining us for the first time, just some quick intros here. My name is Christina Fenseth. Wow, I guess I don't lead growth marketing at Intercell anymore. I kind of do, but I'm actually senior manager of outbound growth marketing at Greenhouse now as we go through this acquisition and transition, which is a fancy way of saying that I pair very closely with the SDR team to help level up outbound strategy on both the sales and the marketing side. I'm also an advisor for Lavender. So, Will.
And I'm one of the co-founders at Lavender. We are a real-time writing assistant to help salespeople write better emails faster. And so I come from the background of seeing millions of emails per month. There's a lot of data that goes through our system here. And so I get to talk to the best practices that we see and showcase how they would look within the context of writing, which is what we do here at One Email, Two Takes. We take an email that was either sent to us or was shared with us to share with y'all. And we break it down in our own writing styles, and we talk through, not only what's, going wrong with the email, but actually how to fix it, which is something that we saw missing so much here within the content realm. So Christina, do you want to share your screen? I think I just turned on permissions because that definitely wasn't there before.
I was gonna say, I didn't think I had permissions, but awesome. So I brought the email for today, and this is from a recruiter who owns a recruiting agency based out of the UK. So just to give some context, I don't have a subject line. He did not provide one, but this is the email that he sent me and requested that we break down and rewrite here. So it says, I used your name, Will, just for context here. It's not just a weird coincidence. Will, the almost 2-year lockdown has triggered a large increase in resignations of people seeking a new direction in life. I'm willing to bet that the food and bev industry has also seen an exodus of some key players. Have you had a key person leave? Are you looking to hire some great A players for 2022? I started in this industry when I was still at school, helping my mom and dad in their cafes and restaurants. I later set out on my own, selling fruit juice and coffee to catering companies throughout the UK. I used to have stands at Hotel Olympia and the fast food fair, which used to be held in Brighton. During this time, I met hundreds of business owners and entrepreneurs in the food and bev businesses. Are you open for a quick 15-minute chat to see how we could help?
Christina,
I'm gonna stop talking.
I feel like the CTA should be, Christina, would you like to see my movie script at Netflix and we can put something together? I read this and I was like, what am I reading? This is like someone's life story just showing up in my inbox uninvited. The other thing that came to my mind, I don't know about you, but like, I feel like there was this like pattern of email that went out from like March 2020 to like, unfortunately still today, where people are talking about like remote work, hybrid work, with everybody locked down, blah, blah, blah. And it's like anything you could have said after that, I was just like, too much. I don't want to read it. I've seen this note like 1,000 times. Speaks to the fact that like we don't really read to actually read. We read for categorization of what is this, right? I'm curious, like, is that a trend that you're seeing in the recruiting space where people talk about like the Great Resignation now?
Yeah, I mean, you see a lot of those cards pulled. I also see to the writer's point here, I think I'm also understanding that he's trying to show that he has expertise in this domain by sharing these stories from his life. But that tends to be a trend too in the recruiting industry where, especially with recruiting agencies, they tend, in my opinion, to be the most mixed up between a marketing email and a sales email. And they tend to just want to kind of spray and pray a more generic story across an industry versus like really honing in on like one-to-one personalization or even just like one-to-one relevancy. And so I think this was very long. I think the language was a little what you would probably say beyond a 5th grade reading level, especially in the beginning, just the big words, right? Like
Yes.
increase in resignations of people seeking a new direction in life, or maybe they just left because they want more money. Like, I don't think it has to be so elaborate
Dramatic.
storytelling here. Yeah, dramatic. That's a good word. But yeah, it's got some good elements, but I think this could be a heck of a lot better with just a few little switches.
So they brought mom and dad into it. So this was something
I
else.
know.
The story was quite something. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. Like, I love the idea of storytelling, right? Like, I just wrote a newsletter about how you shouldn't like link to case studies, because you should actually use them as like a way to tell a story, and
Yeah.
using, actually, because we're talking about recruiting, an interviewing framework, BAR, right? Where you answer a question with background, the actions you took, and the results that occurred. And so, like, I love the idea of telling a story within your email. It's just, this is a very personal story that lacks a lot of the relevance back to like why we're all here. We're here in our inbox as a to-do list. And so I joke about like the movie script, because your inbox isn't Netflix, it's a place where you're there to get stuff done. And so it's like, how do we refocus this prose to get back to getting things done, getting back to the task at hand, which is getting folks hired for new jobs. So Christina, I'd love to see your rewrite. Actually, I haven't had a chance to read through it.
Yeah. And I have to say, just real fast side note, the fact that you just used prose really speaks to my rhetoric and writing associate's degree that I got back in the day. So yeah, I
Yep.
was a writer from the beginning. But anyway, so here is my rewrite. I tried to condense this obviously, but Will saw you're leading recruiting. I'm assuming that this person is reaching out to whoever's leading recruiting, just because right now, just to give some context to those who don't know, even companies with recruiting teams are overloaded, just because there is such a high demand for talent. There's a lot of open roles. And sometimes they do lean on recruiting agencies to help with specialized roles or helping to supplement what they can't do. So I made it, hey, I'm going to make the assumption that they're reaching out to this recruiting leader, right? So saw you're leading recruiting at, and this is probably a food and beverage company, right? Thought I'd reach out. Curious, with the great resignation upon us, and yeah, I threw that in. It's relevant. I did do some dramatics here. I'm kind of maybe second guessing this, but are you bleeding out any of your key talent? Because I want it to feel like a painful problem. Like, they probably are bleeding out some of their key talent. We're helping other food and bev companies, and this could be a good place to insert that storytelling. Like, we recently helped X food and bev company tap into passive talent to backfill these two key roles, leaning in on our deep relationships in the space, because that's really what he's trying to get into with that storytelling, right? Like, I have deep relationships in this space, open to see how we could help. Cheers, the person. And then, because it felt really important to him, I just included this as a PS, like, hey, I actually used to sell fruit juice and coffee to catering companies throughout the UK. And you could have seen my stands at Hotel Olympia or the fast food fair held in Brighton then. Just to kind of throw in that personal touch of like, not only do I have deep relationships in this space, but I used to be in the space myself doing the hustle. So
yeah,
that was my rewrite.
I dig it. And yeah, I actually like that you kept like the same feel of the original email. I kind of like ripped it apart and went a bit more new. But you've kind of got a lot of like the same core elements, and then you really kept it all there within the PS. I actually like the bleeding out key talent, right? I love using words like that, where it's like, yeah, it's, you think about like how they're going to go through it, right? They're skimming. And so they see this word bleeding. And they're like, what is that? Right. Because it's this like strange pattern interrupt of like using a uncommon, but not like crazy complicated word. Where it's like, oh yeah, bleeding talent. That's something I'm familiar with. This is good. I like it.
Sweet. I want to see yours. I also did not read yours yet. So
Well, as you can see, I took a slightly different approach on the observation, which the assumption is like, if you're reaching out to a company, right, they're likely hiring across the board, particularly within food and bev. And so I went, Hey, Will, saw you're hiring for several different roles. Curious if I'm wrong to guess that a percentage of that will be to backfill roles. We're seeing this across the board with recruiting leaders in food and bev. They need to keep growing, but they're also now having to account for folks leaving. We've been helping folks in your space find great talent. Worth the chat to see how we can help your team. So I took a lot of that, like, personal backstory out. I took some of the, I basically worked as hard as I could to avoid using the phrase great resignation. And so you see me kind of doing some
I
like
didn't.
verbal gymnastics of like, we're seeing this across the board, they need to keep growing, but they're seeing folks leaving. But I tried to set it up in like a logical like progression of like, here's what's happening. We see it all the time. And like using the story to still build credibility, I didn't necessarily state that, we've got orange juice stands down in Brighton, but at the same time, like, I'm speaking to the thing that's probably relevant to the person that's receiving the note. And that's really where I was trying to go with it.
Oh, I love yours. You definitely were a winner chicken dinner this week. I think what's really important here too, and I think this is something maybe we could dialogue on real quick before we wrap this episode up, is there's an innate drive to want to feel like you're forging a connection and proving that you have expertise and that you're relatable. And I think oftentimes people do that through saying things like, I've been helping my mom and dad in the industry, just to kind of build that. And to be honest with you, I don't know what your take is on this, Will, but more often than not, like, your reader doesn't necessarily care. It's not that they're heartless. It's just, to your point, they want to understand very quickly what this message means for them. And then they want to categorize, is this a need or not? Right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just kind of wanted to dialogue on that. Don't try to force your relatableness or, that you've just been in this industry for so long. I think that stuff can unfold if you have a message that makes them feel curious. They'll dig in. They can see your background. It's probably on your LinkedIn profile too. So
totally. Yeah. And it's this like innate need to like talk about yourself to create credibility. Like, I've done all these things. I know this, I do that. Check out these cool features, check out my big case studies, blah, blah, blah. Like, all that stuff is secondary to the problem that the other person has, and showcasing that you actually get the problem and you can speak to it just like they would. Well, cool. It's a great place to wrap up. Okay. Well, if you're enjoying these, be sure to subscribe to Sales Hacker. We drop these every week and every other Monday. So like today, but you won't see this video until tomorrow. So yesterday, we'll be recording our office hours. So 2 weeks from today, or 13 days from when you see this tomorrow, we'll have another session, which will be on, I'm trying to like pull up my calendars. I'm like going through this. Okay. The next one's on the 20th. So we've got email office hours where, you bring your emails, we'll talk through them, we'll chat about them. We'll do this exact same thing. So until then, we'll see you next time.